Hello there and season's greetings. It's been a while since my last review, almost a month in fact. December's always a busy time with Christmas shopping, Christmas decorations, Christmas parties, all that kind of thing, so I haven't done much in the way of game reviews, in fact nothing until this point. But I thought it was time to take another look at some of the games that were released for other computers by Mastertronic, but not for the Commodore 64, and see if they might have been worth releasing on the Commodore 64. I did this originally back in November 2012. It was that long ago, and it was pretty cool. So let's take a look at another set of games for some of the competitors. That's why this series is called Behind Enemy Lines, because we're looking at the competitors for the Commodore 64 back in the 8-bit computing days. And the first thing we're going to look at, as you can probably see from the screen behind there, is the Amstrad. And the first game we're going to take a look at is Radzone. Okay, let's take a closer look at the front cover then. And first we've got the logo, which is pretty cool. It says Radzone, and the O is the kind of international symbol for nuclear atomic stuff. And then we've got a guy who's messing around with some kind of atomic thing, I guess, there. And around him are some rather ugly looking creatures that resemble orcs, or maybe they're sort of radioactive mutants or something along those lines. And we've also got a weird kind of cityscape thing there going on. The spine's got the grid style, but the orange grid style in the case of the Amstrad packaging. And on the back there we've got a little blurb about the game. The colonization team had almost completed their task when a nuclear power unit went supercritical. The base had to be abandoned. It's now down to you to make the planetoid safe again. Inside the inlay we got some screenshots, no surprises there really. And very colourful, as befits the Amstrad. Not quite sure what's going on, but it looks like some kind of flick screen platformer, which would again be no surprise really. And inside we've got the aim of the game in a very small font. Basically, you've got to clear up a radioactive mess. You work inside a protective metal suit. The suit will be disintegrated by radiation. Yada yada yada. Lots of stuff that can't be bothered to read. Plain hints. The more radioactive objects are on screen, the faster the rads count goes up. That stands to reason. And basically you've got to make safe areas, work outwards to new areas, and make basically the whole landscape safe, it seems. And we've got the controls, which can be done by joystick or keyboard, and the loading instructions, copyright, etc., and some foreign language instructions complete the inlay. So after a couple of minutes of loading, the game's popped up this. Lots of beeping going on, which you can probably hear in the background. And basically it's asking me if I want to redefine the controls, which I do not. And there's a big introduction to the game. And that's about it really, it's now loading. So the game loads, and this is a screen you're presented with, and the game has actually started, believe it or not. You've got this little bit of information going across the bottom of the screen there. Game written by Colin Hogg and J. Dave Rogers. And as you can see, it says welcome to Radzone. And it says press T to take a tour, so let's do that just quickly. If you press T, it'll show you some of the screens of the game. As you can probably tell, it's quite a colourful flick screen arcade adventure game, of which there were quite a lot on the Amstrad and other 8-bit micros. So it gives you a guided tour of the game screens, some of which look rather challenging. That's probably enough of that, so let's press stop to stop the tour and get on with the game. So my little man, he's just gone and got into this little suit here, and he's now can get about his business within the game. And it's quite a strange way of moving from screen to screen. You can't just walk from screen to screen at any point. You have to use these little green arrows for walking to that little green arrow there. Then I go back to the screen I started with, and I can go down. And that moves there. And the idea of the game is to make each room a safe zone by collecting all the items on the screen. They do vary. These little items that look like clams, you can collect those, as you can see. You get points, which are recorded in the bottom left hand corner. The idea of making each level or each screen a safe zone is because you can see the rads are increasing there on the screen, on the readout there, so you've got to get yourself around the screen and collect all the items before the rads get to the top and make your suit gradually disintegrate. Lots of things to avoid as well, including giant mutant knives on this level. Well, there you go, collect all the items on the screen, and the screen's made into a safe zone, which means that the rads all vanish. You can still get them affected by the enemies moving around the screen, but basically you can now go on and off this screen every time you go on it. The rads are reset to 0, which is a useful thing. So moving around the screen is done by moving up, down, left, right, and you can also jump. Jumping doesn't seem to have any obvious benefit until you get to points like this, where you can only reach that little green arrow there by jumping. If I just try and push up, it doesn't reach. And if I move off the screen, the rads remain, but if I move back, because that's a safe zone, the rads go back to 0 and don't increase, so that's quite useful. So let's try and do the same on this. Levels vary from just basic collecting to actually solving little puzzles. This one here, you've got these things dropping down and they're changing the colour of the 3 little diamonds on the screen. You can actually only collect them when they're red. And I've messed that up. Oh, it's red again now, so I can get that now. There we go. So make my way down. Oh, and I'm dead. There goes my life. You might notice just before he dies his suit disintegrates and he turns back into the little guy with a bald head who was running around at the beginning of the game. Get that one there. I have to wait for this one now. And there we have another safe zone. And that's pretty much the aim of the game, is to get around each screen and turn it into a safe zone. Some are easier than others. Let's give it a go on this next level. So this one, it's just a case of collecting these clam-like things again. Oh, there you go, he's lost his suit, which means death's not far away. Sure enough, there it is. So graphics are generally quite nice, quite colourful, a little bit blocky, which is typical. There we go, there's another safe zone. Typical Amstrad graphics, very colourful, almost psychedelic. Sounds okay, kind of a little pitter-patters and things as you run around. Occasionally you do get music as well. Let's see what's going on this next screen. Just refresh the rads there. So on this screen, not quite sure what you've got to collect. There's something there. I'm not sure if you've got to get these things as well. Let's make our way across the top and see what happens. Oh dear, that's not good. That thing's got me almost straight away. Don't like that screen. Let's go back and try one of the others. Let's see what we can find down here. Oh, this one's quite colourful. What's going on here? Interesting that this big radioactive symbol is actually moving in time with me there. So I'm not quite sure what you're supposed to do with that. Somehow I've got to try and make him... Oh, okay. Disaster. Let's quickly make our way off that screen and go to the next one, which is called In the Cage. As is typical for these flick screen adventure games, most of these screens have got a name. This one's going to be quite challenging because there's a lot of little diamond things to dispose of. Oh dear, that's not good. Just a couple of lives left, so I'm probably not going to last too much longer. Try and get this one done. So overall, controls a bit flaky, graphics are reasonably nice, bit repetitive, but overall not too bad. It's not a very interesting game. As I said, there were hundreds of these little flick screen arcade adventures across the 8-bit computers. Even Mastertronic themselves probably did maybe 15 or 20 of them, if not more. So they do kind of get a bit tedious. And there goes my last life. I got 1,972 points, which seems alright. Don't see any need to play it again. I was 7% successful, which basically means it was 7% completion and not successful at all. So not a bad game in terms of presentation and graphics and so on, but not particularly interesting. Not really worth $1.99 for me personally, although if you like these kind of games, there's probably far worse examples and far better ones for that matter. So that was the first of the Amstrad games. There will be more of those coming up in this little mini series, but next up we're going to take a look at a BBC Micro game.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.